it's Thursday. Hello, everyone. Hi, Jeff. You won tonight. Well done. Good to see you checking in, even though you're out on the road. Hello, Craig. Are you back from Fiji? How was the holiday? I hope you brought all the rest back as well. Shell is going grilled cheese tonight. Excellent. Hello, Shell and Andrew. Gruyere and pecorino with grilled onions. How delicious. Hello, Cotty and John. Lovely to have you back. Kay and Alison. That's who else. That feature was awesome. I bet it was. I bet it was amazing. Well, we're still all stuck here, so it's not too bad here either. Hello, Greg and Hayley. How you doing? Did I say hello to everyone? I think so. Yes. So I'm glad to hear that people are having steaks and grilled cheese. I have got a little plate. I've been, again, hopeless. Pete's in the kitchen banging away on the stove still because we've got mushroom tours starting up this weekend for 4 weeks. So he's got a bit of cooking to do for the mushroom lunch on Sunday. Jill and Richard have gone to Newcastle. Hello, Newcastle. I'm sure you guys won't be watching because it's the girls' ballet concert tonight. I've got Polly and Frodo here. Polly's going to come and show you her beautiful bath body and new haircut. There she goes. Look at that. It's a real poodle with a beautiful face. Hello, Polly. Good girl. And Anne. Bolognese on the stove, cheese and pate to start off with. Fantastic. Hello, Emily. Good to see you. Kevin's in Singapore. Nice. But lovely to have you here. What else? Craig's just had a sip of the Shiraz. I had a feeling that you wouldn't be able to wait till I said you're allowed to start. Hello, Rob and Deb and Zoe and Magnus. G'day. Yeah, I think with this sort of wine, just a really good aged cheddar is superly fabulous. Can't even speak tonight. It's been a long week again. Anthony and Brigitte. Hello, how you going? Fantastic to have you here. This wine does need to breathe. So let me get this open and put it in a decanter and then into a glass. That's the McIntyre Vineyard 2018 Shiraz with its new artwork. Isn't it pretty? I think did we look at this last year? Some of you who are old timers on the old Drinks with Kate show. Hello, Daryl and Sue. Got everybody fed, you'll be pleased to know. Sue's just been over helping me walk the dogs while Jill and Richard are away. So, yes, it was a bit of a rush this afternoon. I can't remember if we tasted this last year, but I'm going to tell you the story again. The label, before I get into it, has everyone had a good look at the label and tried to work out what it is? Maybe I've already told you, so you might be able to tell me straight away. I'm not going to tell you yet. Blackberry at 20 paces. Absolutely, Alison. It's a pretty rich wine. So let's get this open. We did talk about the artwork. That's what I thought, Cotty. So this is the first vintage that has this artwork, and we did a little pre-release tasting last year in one of our interminable lockdowns. Tried July the 21st. Thank you, Renee. Oh, Nigel, thank you. Box 4 last year. See, Nigel, I always read Renee Street and then I read your thing and then you write your name at the end. So I'm so sorry. One day I'll go, oh, it's Renee. No, it's Nigel before I open my mouth. Right, wine in decanter. Yes, then we went into lockdown again and Shiraz sales slowed down a bit. So it just didn't seem important to rush this wine out there. Hello, Jeff and Sue. Lovely to see you. Glad you could make it for the lovely Shiraz. Alison, it's not stringy bark, but you're very close. It's the bark of one of our Shiraz vines. So it's old. It's an old piece of Shiraz trunk, and you have to turn it on its side to see it in real life. So very close up. Now, look at that colour. Isn't that awesome? I love it when you pour it into a decanter because not only does it give it some air, you get those lovely purple bubbles around the top and you know that you're in for a treat. Hello, Sam and Paul with girls and guests Francesca and Sophia. Hello, everyone. Great to see you. I've just got the Shiraz in the decanter, and if you want to give it a bit of a swoosh, then you can. But I just say, get it into the glass. Hello, Karen. Peter okay, cool. Good to see you. Driving solo on the Shiraz. Good work. So this is my regular Magnum glass that if you've been to Moorooduc Estate and come to a tasting, these are the glasses that we use for tastings. Now, just to put it in perspective, it looks enormous because I've got it in front of my head. But if I put it next to my head, that's how big it is. If I put it next to a bottle, that's how big that glass is. So it's already quite a big glass. But this is not a Riedel Shiraz glass. This is a Riedel Shiraz glass. And I've got them equal distance. I'll pull it away so you can see the whole glass. So it's taller and a little bit wider than the Magnum glass, but very similar shape. So just because I've got one, I'm going to use my Riedel Shiraz glass. The big problem with these glasses, because they're so big, you can actually fit just about a whole bottle of wine into it, which is not good if you're trying to be careful about how much you drink at a time. And it's also not a great idea to fill a glass of wine up too much. I know we've had this conversation before, but it's always worth remembering again. So in a big glass like this, it's just a little puddle in the bottom, and that's already quite a generous pour. Just so you can see what it looks like in the Magnum glass. Little bit more aeration. That's nearly 150 mils because the Magnum glass has got 150 mils where the Moorooduc Estate line goes. So I just think it's worth remembering when we're using these beautiful but ridiculously large glasses that you don't need to put very much in them to drink quite a lot, if that makes sense. Anyway, it's a great glass for aeration. As you can see, I can get that really swooshing around and get lots of air into it. So now what, Craig, have you said? The nose on this is amazing. Love the evolution in glass. Definitely a transformer. Raw capsicum through to violets. Absolutely. When you first smell it, it's got that raw capsicum character to it. And it's a little challenging. But as soon as it starts getting air in it and opening up, you get those blackberries that Alison was talking about. You get that beautiful lifted floral dark violet aromatic and lots more besides. So it's kind of black plums and cherries. Excuse me. And it keeps changing, which is what we like. What I like when I'm tasting a wine that I'm going to maybe drink a couple of glasses of over some time. I want to go on a little adventure with the wine. Shell, I'm so glad the Shiraz carries the basil well. I think this is a wine that, because of that little capsicum note in the early stages, and it's still got some really herbal characters as well, it actually works really well. As I said, when I was smelling it and thinking about it, it made me think of that Spanish sandwich that I had a couple of weeks ago, and that was not raw capsicum, but red grilled and then marinated capsicum and grilled eggplant. So quite savoury vegetable flavours, but because they've been grilled, you get that caramelisation on the outside and that little charry note. And there's a little charry note from the oak in this wine as well. And then you've got some more sort of tangy characters that reminded me a little bit of green olives, weirdly. And I've got some green olives here with anchovies in them, which I'm going to try with this wine in a minute. Peter's also, as I said before, cooking up mushrooms for mushroom lunch on Sunday and has given me a little plate of cooked mushrooms that have been cooked in some sherry, I think. So that will be interesting to see how that works. But this is a wine that would be fabulous with a steak. I'm making myself hungry. I'm making my mouth water because I haven't put any wine in my mouth yet. So I hope you guys are snacking and tasting while I witter on about what I think the wine's going to taste like. Anne has said she's got blackcurrant flavours on the palate and delicious drinking. Alison, your gateway wine to Drinks with Kate. Well, that's fantastic because I do think this is a very unusual Shiraz, and we'll talk about why in a moment once I've had a sip. Oh, that's better. Yum. There's something about this wine that, because it's cool climate, it's got terrific natural acidity still, And some warmer climate Shirazes lose some of that natural acidity, and you either have to cope with a wine that has less acid or add acid back in, which can sort of make the wine a bit twangy on the palate. This wine for me has got that black pepper spice to it as well. Not huge amounts, not like a... So when I think about cool climate Shiraz, I think about wines like Clonakilla Shiraz from the Canberra district. Not their second label, because their Hilltop Shiraz is from an area quite close to Canberra, but which is significantly warmer, whereas around Canberra is quite cool, and you get incredible black pepper aromas and this sort of similar mid-weight palate texture. I think about other Mornington Peninsula Shirazes like the Paringa Shiraz. Montalto makes a really good Shiraz as well. I'm just making, Montalto makes a fantastic Shiraz as well. Shirazes from the Bellarine Peninsula, I think, can be delicious, and from the Adelaide Hills as well, which is a little bit warmer than here, but still cool climate. Of course, Australia is really famous for big warm to hot climate Shirazes, both from the Hunter Valley and from Barossa and McLaren Vale in South Australia. And I think a lot of people taste those wines, and because they're seen as being so quintessentially Australian, people decide whether they like or dislike Shiraz because of those wines. Yes, Craig Clonakilla does love the Viognier thing, and we have decided not to play with Viognier at the moment, but you never know. I think we get some nice florals in the wine without even adding Viognier. And when we sort of did a tasting of this, we did. Sorry, the cat's just walked past the window, and I'm supposed to be letting her in. So give me 2 seconds. If she doesn't come in as soon as I open the door, I'm going to give up on her. But hey, Pete, could you come and let the cat in? She's just at the back door, and I can't leave my people. Hey, come on, Shasha. In you come. Good girl. Oh, you rat bag. She's gone out again. Stupid cat. This is what happens when mum and dad leave me in charge. The cats kind of get freaked out because it's not their normal people, and they're not very tame cats anyway. Anyway, she'll come in or she won't. Thanks, Pete. What was I saying? Blah, blah, blah. Warm climate Shirazes. So a lot of people taste a Barossa Shiraz or a McLaren Vale Shiraz, particularly the more old-fashioned American oaked, really super ripe, really jammy, chocolatey, almost cherry ripe kind of flavours in the wine. And some people love those wines, and absolutely they can be momentous in their sort of size and shape and kind of palate weight. But for a lot of people, that's too much. And for me, a lot of those wines are a bit too sweet and alcoholic and tannic and everything. And I find it really hard work. And I think some of you are sort of agreeing. Shell was saying in their 20s, judge Shiraz after your first Barossa and didn't drink it again for years. And I think I'm not surprised that a lot of... Hello, Dan. Sorry, Barry and Dan and Dominica. Hello. Lovely to see you guys. Sorry, I saw your name pop up and then I got carried away with cats and talking about warm climate Shiraz. So there's nothing wrong with warm climate Shiraz. It's just it doesn't appeal to everybody in the world. And I think that learning that Shiraz can be grown in a cooler climate and express completely different flavours. Well done, Peter. Peter just got the cat in with promises of food. My life at the moment. Nareem, I'll answer that in a moment. I haven't ignored you. But Kay was saying that she's got friends from the UK who didn't know they were cooler climate Shiraz, but when they tasted them, have enjoyed them. And I think a lot of Australians don't know that Northern Rhone wines are Shiraz either. And so there's been a lot of evolution of of Shiraz flavours. And I think even Barossa and McLaren Vale Shirazes and Shiraz from the Hunter Valley have tended to be a little bit more dialed down as far as all of the flavours and aromas and ripeness and all that kind of thing, and less oak, and often more French oak and less American oak, which I think helps. But yeah, those old-fashioned Shirazes put a lot of people off, and this is nothing like it. So the reverse of that is a lot of people taste this wine and go, "Oh my God, why would you grow Shiraz and make Shiraz like this? This is weird. It doesn't taste like anything I can reference it to," and that freaks people who like warmer climate Shiraz out. So you can never please everyone, but I'm glad that I'm here with my people tonight who are obviously very pleased with the wine. Nareem has asked drinking window 2030 plus. Absolutely, this wine will age, and I think with it's a 2018 wine, so it's already 4 years old. I think the fact that it needed lots of air to kind of start opening up suggests that it's maybe not quite ready to go yet, but as long as you've got a decanter or a big glass, then and a little bit of time to let it change in the glass, then that's not a problem. The issue for me is that I don't like really aged Shiraz flavours. I think they get very earthy and leathery and lose that vibrancy, which I really like. So I like to drink this wine personally at about sort of 5 to 10 years old. So that'll get us almost up to 2030, Nareem. But other people will, and it might develop much more slowly than I'm thinking that it will. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll have to get back together in 2031 and taste it together again and see how it's looking. And was just about to say that she went off Shiraz when the alcohol content started to creep up. And yeah, alcohol content, when you're getting Shirazes that are 15 and 16% alcohol, that's a little scary, both as far as being able to do anything after you've drunk a glass of it, but also it just makes the wine big. And we don't always need to be whacked in the head with a big glass of wine. Having something that's a little bit more elegant often I find is more pleasurable. But then that's just me. Alison, I like that. This wine's not gonna body tackle a 8-year-old child at rugby. It's not a bulldozer Shiraz, you're right. And as it opens up, that capsicum is becoming more charry and less raw, and there's more of the blackcurrant and blackberry flavours coming through in the wine. So I think that's really interesting as it's evolving. Craig was asking if yes, you do lose the capsicum flavour with age, and the florals come forward, but also the berry fruit comes forward as well, and then it develops more of that leather and dried meat character as well. So yeah, you do lose that. That is one of the good things about giving this wine a little bit more time in the bottle, that the greenness of it fades with bottle age, and you evolve more complex, developing aromas and flavours as a result, which I think is pretty nice. Rob and Deb are asking, is this closer to a Northern Rhone wine than a traditional Australian Shiraz? Maybe. What is it? I mean, Australian Shiraz has changed so much in the past 10, 20 years that what is now regarded as a traditional Australian Shiraz is so much of a broader sort of church than it used to be. If you think about Heathcote sort of started up after the Mornington Peninsula as a wine region, and Heathcote Shiraz is very popular these days and is a completely different shape and style and flavour profile than this. I've mentioned Hunter and Barossa and McLaren Vale, but other parts of South Australia, Coonawarra has been growing Shiraz there for a long time, and the Coonawarra Shirazes have evolved a little bit over time. But also, if you go all the way up the Limestone Coast, there's a lot of coastal Shirazes being grown along there, which have a more fruit-driven, more elegant sort of style to them because of the coastal cooling effect of being where they are. Adelaide Hills as well is producing really spicy, peppery, vibrant Shirazes. And Tasmania, there's actually quite a handful of Tasmanian producers who are growing and making Shiraz successfully in a cooler climate style. And don't forget the Yarra Valley. So Shiraz is one of those grape varieties that now is grown everywhere in Australia. It's seen as being kind of the quintessential Australian grape variety because we've even got our own name for it. In the rest of the world, they call it Syrah, S-Y-R-A-H, Syrah. We call it Shiraz. And when I have this conversation with people, Rob and Deb, about whether it's closer to a Northern Rhone wine than a traditional Australian Shiraz, if you put it next to a Barossa wine, absolutely, it would look more similar to something from the Northern Rhone. But if you put it next to a Northern Rhone wine, it doesn't look like that either because it's got that core of sweet fruit in the mid palate that is quite different from a Rhone Shiraz. So different again. Scanning. Thank you, Nige. Dan also enjoys the King Valley Shiraz. Yeah, King Valley's fantastic. I think King Valley, you got a couple of different things. So it's further inland, so it's not maritime. So what that means is that they have a bigger diurnal shift between day and night, summer and winter. So often in the ripening period of Shiraz, they can get really cold nights in the King Valley, really hot days. So the grapes ripen differently as a result. You get different flavours evolving. And the cooler sites in the King Valley are cool from elevation, so getting up into the foothills of the Alps. But yes, I think King Valley Shiraz is probably more similar. It's sort of somewhere in between, so you get less of the black pepper and less of the florals and a bit more savoury, meaty kind of earthiness. Just got to keep tasting it to see how it's evolving. Yeah, and I think this wine does have those kind of green characters that you wouldn't see in a King Valley Shiraz. Those kind of herbal, slightly vegetal characters that, as I say, make me think of Spanish food, but also Italian food. I don't think it would go very well with tomato-based dishes, but all the other things that go into both Spanish and Italian food as far as vegetables are concerned, capsicum, eggplant, olives, anchovies, those sort of flavours I think are going to work really well with a wine like this because it's quite savoury. Nareem, apart from this one, Velvety McLaren. So Velvety McLaren Vale Shirazes can be delicious. They do need a little bit of extra time. And I think the more modern, for me personally, and this is only a personal opinion, I like some of the more modern McLaren Vale Shirazes compared to the old-fashioned ones because they seem to be now picking them a little bit earlier. They're still ripe, but they're not chasing that really kind of jammy sort of super ripe character that we used to see coming out of McLaren Vale. And they're pulling back on the oak treatment. And I think that there was a real trend in the 90s and early noughties probably to be banging, getting the fruit really ripe, getting it really concentrated and jammy and sweet flavoured, and then banging it in a lot of new oak, which then kind of adds more vanilla and sweetness and flavour. Kay found a love of wine in the early 80s with Darrenberg, went there a few years back and hated it. Yeah, I think the styles have changed and I think probably your palate's changed as well. So it's two things. You've kind of shifted apart from each other for two reasons. But, Darrenberg was a real trailblazer as far as cute names and wines that were really good value for money in the 80s. And I think they were a bit more traditional then, and they've kind of shaken them up. And some people like them more now, and some people like them less. So it's a bit of a half a dozen of one and six of the other. The Hamon would definitely have gone superbly with it, Craig. And I'm going to give it a really difficult challenge to see how it goes with my anchovy stuffed green olive now. it could be awful, but I'll report back in a second. Surprisingly, that works really well. It kind of, when I first put the wine in my mouth, after starting to chew up the olive, the wine completely engulfed the flavour of the olive. And then the olive started to reassert itself. So the flavour I've got in my mouth now is that salty, tangy, savoury olive flavour. And the wine has kind of, it kind of flared up flavour-wise early on, and really like a juicy kind of blackberry tide, and then all the savoury flavours kind of went really nicely with the olive, which I think was quite fun. Hang on, I'll have another sip and then I'll engage with your comments. Craig, I absolutely agree on the fact that McLaren Vale's morphed into Grenache heaven. I adore good McLaren Vale Grenache, and I've never been completely won over by McLaren Vale Shiraz. I've had some very good ones in the past, but they kind of still are a bit rich for me. But McLaren Vale Grenache is just astonishing. I think we've talked about this relatively recently, and maybe we'll have to, I reckon it'd be fun to have a McLaren Vale Shiraz Grenache as a guest wine one of these days, because it's still a little bit cool here to grow Grenache. So there's nobody trying to do Grenache on the Mornington Peninsula. But it's a warm climate grape variety that can have incredible complexity and perfume and floral notes like Pinot Noir, but in a warm to hot climate. So I think that can work rather fabulously. And I think you're right. Robert Parker's influence on Australian Shiraz didn't help. He was a big fan of those, he was a smoker, heavy smoker, big fan of hyper ripe, hyper alcoholic, hyper oaked wines, 100 points for this, 100 points for that. And it spawned a whole lot of try-hard, souped up wines that didn't really have the quality of fruit behind them to carry it through. Shell, you're eating a couple of Portuguese tarts. I don't know what skeki means, so you'll have to explain a little bit more. Are they the sweet ones, the Portuguese tarts with the custard in them? And I reckon that the wine could work with that, actually, because it'd be like putting a little bit of the sneaky tart. Good on you, Shell. Typing and spelling's a bitch, isn't it? Okay, sneaky Portuguese tarts. Yeah, I think it could go well if you don't mind sweet kind of pastry with savoury wine. This one's got enough richness to handle that. And when people ask me, which of your wines can we serve at a wine dinner with dessert? I usually say, well, how about cheese? But if I can't convince them to do cheese, then something like a cheesecake or a Portuguese tart style thing can work quite well with this sort of wine. Peter and Karen, you should still go to your Darrenberg dinner at the start of June, because they'll probably put some nice old things on, and it's good to keep tasting things even if you find that they're no longer your favourite. They're still right up there as far as people's recognition of them. I just think that probably I think probably their styles changed a little bit, but BK's preferences have changed a little bit more. Our palates evolve and develop over time. So, you might find that you enjoy it. You might just say, we should have been home drinking Moorooduc Estate Pinot Noir or Pinot or Shiraz instead. Barry, can you comment on the vintage weather conditions for 2018? Yes, 2018 was a really nice vintage. It was quite warm, and we had sort of a long, slow, dry ripening period. So it wasn't hot. It was just nicely warm. We had rain at the right times. We had sunshine at the right times. The Shiraz had plenty of time to do its thing so we could get it nice and ripe slowly. So I think 2018 is a good vintage for cool climate Shiraz. The other thing that we haven't touched on is that this is 100% whole bunch as well, and that changes the aroma and flavour profile and brings out more of that capsicum-y, herbal, green note. Well, Alison, I you know, what can I say? Grenache versus Pinot Noir, Craig, will be fabulous. I think we will absolutely do that. Truffle, pecorino, and prosciutto would be beautiful with this wine, Anthony. So I'm glad that you're eating that with it. That would be gorgeous. And Kate, I don't know Mount Majura in Canberra for Grenache, so I'll have to see if I can check it out. Sorry, Barry, did I finish telling you about the vintage weather conditions? Yeah, it was just a really nice vintage. If you couldn't make good wine in 2018 down on the Mornington Peninsula, you should probably give up and go home. And those years are usually the years when the Pinot, as long as we pick it at the right time and don't leave it on for too long, is delicious and dark fruited, and we've got the 2018 Estate Pinot as our current release, and it's looking terrific. And so that is fulfilling that requirement. And the Shiraz is, I'm really excited moving from the 17, which was a cooler vintage, a bit more savoury and more vegetal notes, but also quite dense. This one's got a little bit more perfume and florals to it, which I love. The other reason I wanted to come back to my suggestion of matching this to spaghetti bolognese, and I think, yeah, Jeff and Sue are also agreeing that the stuffed green olives are working beautifully with the Shiraz. I think it's an inspired food and wine match, because it's not supposed to work, but I think it works. I think it works surprisingly well. And spaghetti bolognese is another thing that works surprisingly well with this wine, because the savoury vegetal notes work really well with the. And I said before that I didn't think this would go very well with tomatoey things, and bolognese sauce is the exception to the rule, because I find when you slow cook bolognese sauce, even though it's got tomato passata in it, the meat and the onion and the garlic, making my mouth water again, and the seasoning, and I most often make the Stephanie Alexander bolognese recipe, which has got nutmeg in it, and I know that Guy Grossi, when he makes bolognese sauce, he also puts a lot of nutmeg in it, and I think that the nutmeg is a little key surprise flavour profile that makes the meat and the tomato taste sort of sweeter and makes it work really well with this Shiraz. And it's one of my winter joys to have a glass of this Shiraz with a bowl of spaghetti bolognese. It works pretty well with sort of slow cooked beef stews as well. But bolognese was one that I find, unless I'm drinking Italian wine, quite hard to match Australian wine. I know we've had this conversation a few weeks ago about bolognese and Pinot Noir. It doesn't work for me. Doesn't mean that it can't work for other people. But for me, I like this Shiraz. I like Italian wine with bolognese. It's pretty awesome. Craig, I think that's really interesting, because growing up, my mum used to use spaghetti bolognese as a way of slipping vegetables to us. So mum's spaghetti bolognese always was full of mushrooms and capsicum and zucchini and all sorts of vegetables, kind of, stewed for a long time in the meat, and kind of went a bit, you couldn't see the vegetables very well, so you didn't know that you were eating them. Wasn't a problem for me, but my sisters were a bit fussier than I was. So when I kind of came back to making spaghetti bolognese as an adult, I used to just kind of do what mum used to do originally, and I kind of went, I wonder what a recipe for spaghetti bolognese looks like. And so I looked at a couple, and looking at Guy Grossi and Stephanie Alexander, the nutmeg is a thing. I can imagine cinnamon would work pretty well as well. I think for me, I like cinnamon in a chili con carne. If we're going to talk about these spices with slow cooked meat dishes, I think the cinnamon and the chili go really well together in a chili con carne. I've never tried cinnamon in a spag bowl, so I'll give that a crack as well. So how's the wine evolving for you now, if you haven't finished it all? Okay, Graciano. Well, Graciano is a really interesting grape variety as well. So Marcella Hazan. Well, Marcella Hazan is absolutely the Italian queen of cooking, and I've got some of her books as well, Craig. So I must have one. I've got her one that she wrote about cooking for her husband. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's something like Marcella Hazan at home, or home cooking, or something like that. And that doesn't have a Bolognese recipe in it, I don't think, but I will have another look. Anyway, I think I also, until fairly recently, I hadn't really thought about the origin of spaghetti bolognese. I just thought it's Italian, but of course it's not. It's from Bologna. That's why it's called spaghetti bolognese. It's a Bolognian regional dish. And if and when you go to Italy, you'll find that every region has its regional dishes, and you end up eating a lot of the same thing. And somewhere like Piemonte has something like spaghetti bolognese, but they don't call it spaghetti bolognese. They call it pasta al ragu or something like that. So it's pretty awesome. Oh, Craig, Pinot Gris on skins. That's funny. You're the second person to ask today how the stocks of Pinot Gris on skins are going. And we are getting towards the end of the 2020. So if you would like some 2020 Pinot Gris on skins, I'd say order it sooner rather than later, like maybe this week or next week. I've got another customer of our distributor who was asking him about it, and they're going to contact me as well. So I can't tell you exactly how much we've got left, but it's a few cases rather than a few hundred cases. So Alison, your mother was given a recipe from Mrs. Rigo when you were 12. Yeah, that's awesome. I think having an Italian neighbour or an Italian friend helps a lot with traditional Italian recipes. Thank you, Craig. I shall look forward to seeing it, and we shall send it off almost immediately. But yeah, I think, spending some time in Italy with Italian people, it makes you really understand how regional specialities are such an important part of Italian Italian cooks' lives. We've kind of got off track from the Shiraz, so I will come back to the Shiraz in just a second. But I think that it is one of those awesome things, and this is a sort of non-typical Australian Shiraz, and it sort of makes sense that it might go with a traditional Italian dish rather than. It goes pretty well also if you're thinking Northern Rhone flavours. Then there's a lot of lamb and there's a lot of beef that's cooked in tomato with black olives and onions and those kind of things. And this sort of wine also works very, very well with those flavours. So don't get me wrong, traditional flavours from the Northern Rhone are pretty special as well, and can work really well with this kind of Shiraz. Stanley Tucci TV, an Italian wine and food. That would be awesome. The other one I really like, and if you haven't already given it a go, The Chef's Table, if you've got Netflix, is fantastic. If you speak French, there's actually a French version. It's in French. I think if you fiddle with your television, you can get the subtitles. But my French is still okay enough that I can watch it in French if I'm concentrating and get most of the gist of it, which is good practice for me. But the American Chef's Table, they go all around the world, and there's a terrific one with Massimo Bottura, is that his name? And they talk about making sorry, I'm getting my food TV shows mixed up. There's a really good show also on Netflix called Ugly Delicious, by the guy who David Chan, who started Momofuku, and he does a whole episode on dumplings, and he pits Chinese dumplings against Italian filled pasta, and talks about them being really kind of pretty much the same thing, but just that that people think that Italian is more refined than the Chinese, but it's not. And he goes all around the world, and he goes to Italy and makes some tortellini with Massimo Bottura. So I think Massimo's also on Chef's Table. But anyway, those guys, if you're into this kind of thing, then watching an hour of chefs being geeky and in love with food can be an absolute joy if you're in the right frame of mind. So if you haven't discovered those shows, good thing to open a bottle of wine and have a glass of wine while you're watching it, because it's all, you want to sit down, you want to watch and listen, because it's both of the shows are very kind of rich in their imagery, as well as telling interesting stories about food journeys. So Ugly Delicious, it's called, Alison, and it's David Chan. He's done 2 series, and I wish he would do more, but he kind of got busy having a baby with his wife and being a successful restaurateur and all that kind of thing. But it's really interesting. He's a very thoughtful food creator. Okay, me too. Oh well, sorry, I don't use Foxtel. I use Netflix, but same. There's lots of good food stuff. All right, back to this Shiraz. I think we've given it lots of chance. Okay, what did Craig say? Cabernet drinkers Shiraz, absolutely. Message from the servo. Thanks, Jeff. David Chan is the Korean guy. Yes, Rob and Deb. And his restaurant in New York, Momofuku, is. That's another story for another day, but I really like him. I think he's very inspiring, and he's got this kind of very he loves great food, but he's got this really down to earth love of food generally. And Ugly Delicious refers to the fact that it's sort of food that's not beautiful or fine dining, but it's still delicious. That said, he does a whole episode on steak, which can be pretty zhuzhy or pretty kind of mainstream, depending on where you go. Whiff of the wine in the decanter, Kate, and it's amazing with so much more air, isn't it? And Momofuku in Sydney, in Star Casino, is terrific as well. I haven't been since they started out, and the food was sort of a play on what they were doing in New York, and now they've got a new chef, and it's Caribbean based. So I haven't been since the Caribbean chef was there, but I'd love to go back. So maybe we should do a Momofuku dinner. I think it's very hard to get in, but maybe we should do a Momofuku Moorooduc dinner sometime. I don't know whether that would ever be possible, but I'll do some research. That'd be fun. The wine's opening up really nicely, and you're starting to see some really lovely meaty, earthy flavours as well as the black brie and black currant. And almost all of the green has gone away now, and the pepper's coming forward as well. Okay, Craig, we'll work on it. They don't know who I am, Shell. Not everyone does. It's surprising, I know, but I have my contacts in certain places, and that's not one of them. I have been there once. I managed to jump on the back of a friend's booking, and they had a booking for 2 people. It was when it was new and really super groovy and almost impossible to get a booking, and they got a booking, and I happened to be in Sydney for the same night, and I'm like, do you reckon you could convince the restaurant to make it a table for 3 rather than a table for 2? So I totally joined their party, and we had a fabulous night. It was really fun. Anthony, you're coming to Basque. How fabulous. I wanted to say I hope that some of my Queensland friends are going to be able to come and see me at one of our dinners that we're doing in Queensland late next week. So we've got the Goma dinner is pretty expensive. I didn't realise how expensive it was until after I'd sent the link out, because I kind of looked at it and gone, wow, that looks great. And then I looked at the price and went, oh, that's quite expensive. So hopefully some wealthy Brisbaneites will be coming to the Goma dinner. I think it'll be lovely, but it'll be really fun. But I'm also really looking forward to Basque on Friday night. It'll be so fun. That's right near you. Oh, that's fantastic, Anthony. Well, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to catch up with you guys in real life, IRL, as the kids say. Craig, the MW training. How did the MW training go? Oh, that was okay. That was quite good. Any tips for us for coming EPs? I don't know what you're talking about, Craig. Explain yourself. I did do some MW training for some Master of Wine students online last week, was it? It was last week. And they did all right. You know, these are students who are sort of stuck in China and Japan and one guy in Singapore who probably could get out and about, but he's having a lot of trouble with losing staff and to COVID and to other jobs and things like that. So anyway, we did MW training online, which was fun. I didn't get to taste any of the wines again though, so that was a bit. Drinks with Kate episode palate training. Okay, Craig, we will do some palate training coming up. So coming up next week. I will be in Queensland already next week, but I have arranged with my beautiful distributor Brenton Jull, who is colloquially known as BJ, to do Drinks with Kate at, I think we're doing it at his house. But anyway, we're going to be doing Drinks with Kate on location next Thursday, and we'll be looking at the 2019 Estate Chardonnay is the next one coming up. So that'll probably be, dare I say, a little loose because we'll be in Queensland, it'll be warm and blah, 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 which will be awesome. And then we've got a few more wines to go. But after we finish this box, I thought it might be quite fun to do for the Drinks with Kate crowd, particularly those of you who haven't been able to get down to either of our wine club dinners with the single vineyard releases. I thought it might be quite fun to give you guys the option to buy a 3-pack of the single vineyard wines and either do them all 3 in one night and do it as a compare and contrast kind of palate training thing. We could do 2 on one night and decant half of one into a bottle and compare that to the third one on the second night, or we could just do one every night for 3 weeks. So I think that could be quite fun. Oh, Craig, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the palate training that I did 2 weeks ago before you went to Fiji. And that was a complete dead loss because the people who really needed to do the palate training didn't turn up to the session. So we had a meeting about paperwork and then drank a glass of wine and all went home again. So anyway, all fun. That's hilarious, Craig. So you guys need to email me or vote at some stage about whether you want to do all 3 bottles on one night, if you want to do them over 3 weeks, or mix it up and do it over 2 nights and kind of drag them out. As you say, even if you do open 3 bottles in one night, you don't have to drink any of them because all of you hopefully by now have lots of empty half bottles around the house that you can decant half the bottle in and then drink them over the next few days. So I think that works pretty good. I'm going to stop talking now because we're nearly up to the 50-minute mark, and I think that could be a record for us, although I think our Christmas party went overtime even more. But it's been awesome, guys. I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to go and grill up some eggplant and some red capsicum to go with the rest of my second glass of Shiraz. Cotty, recommendation from Moorooduc Estate Wines for the post-election headache we're planning. Well, it depends what you're eating, but I think if you're going to be watching the election results on Saturday night, it's going to be down here, at least it's going to be quite cool. And I would suggest just getting a nice bottle of Estate Pinot Noir, or maybe another bottle of the McIntyre Shiraz, whatever makes you happy, that you can kind of sip on over the night and while you're yelling at the television, and have some nice snacks as well with your wine. So I think anything goes, but I think a Moorooduc Estate wine is a good companion for watching the election and post-election celebrations, commiserations, whatever. You'll need a glass of wine after this weekend, I'm sure. Popcorn and Chardonnay, Kate. If you guys have got some popcorn on hand, by all means, we'll do popcorn next week. Anthony, lovely to see you. Welcome to the gang. Everyone else, you're correct. Craig Drinks with Kate is politics free. And Robin Deb Champagne if we get the right PM. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that. It's been awesome, guys. And Alison, I hear what you're saying. Three by three is a bit hard to comprehend. I have a feeling that maybe doing 3 wines over 3 weeks might be the best thing for us to do. But we'll work on that plan. And I will see you all again next week from sunny Queensland. I'll probably be wearing a sun frock, I'd say. Cheers, everyone.